Hello everyone, Master Xeon 1001 here. I usually do a lot of robots, heads. So I figured this time I would actually start from a different angle and have you guys go through the process of creating a robot leg using hard ops and decal machine. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. Alright, so jumping in and getting started. And we're just going to take this cube and we're just going to press SX2. Maybe SX 1.5, maybe not that big of a cube. And then I'm going to press Shift D, not Alt D, duplicate it below. Now, whenever I scale it, I'm going to press S, Shift, and Z in order to scale it on everything but Z. And I'm going to come back and press SZ to scale it on the Z and the N anyways, because, that's how it goes. So, this is the beginnings of a leg. I'm going to Shift D, duplicate this, SZ, scale it down, bring it forward, and we will place it like so. And from here, we're going to do a couple of things to each of these pieces to begin leveling them up. So for this one, what I want to do is first apply scale. And I'm going to go in edit mode, select this edge, press Q, add modifier bevel, and we will bevel this one. And I'll go back in edit mode, select these two edges, and this time when I click it, I'm going to hold control, and we're just going to bevel these, and we'll give it 6, trying to stop using odd numbers. We'll press Alt X to bring up the mirror gizmo, and I want to use modifier, and we want to keep this side. So now our work's been halved, and we can go back under bevel and adjust this one. We can hold shift and scroll and adjust this one. So, we got a nice non-destructive base working here. Personally, in my experiences using hard ops, I personally like working non-destructively to an extent, and then once things are nailed down, begin applying things, because from there, you just have a lot more control. So continuing on, we'll just S-sharp this. In fact, I'm going to Control Z undo it, and we're just going to go into helper with Control tilde and actually smooth it instead. And that way we just get nice smoothing. Otherwise the sharpened edge is going to show up as an artifact, and it doesn't have to be that way. So pressing numpad 1, numpad 5 to look at it in front view, and to get out of perspective, we're going to Shift A, add a cube, SZ, and tab into edit mode, grab this edge, Control B, and we'll select this piece and press Q and use Boolean. So now we're all set up here. Now notice that adding the Boolean did not disrupt this bevel or this bevel, and this is because we are using the level 2 sorting, where the new bevel sorting doesn't actually sort any bevels that are affecting specific edges. Great care was taken to make sure it did not happen. So from here, we're just going to control click this to add a 30°, which will give 6 segments. And we're just about started. Look right here, you can see some shading issues. Let's go ahead and add one more modifier to the stack, and that's going to be weighted normal. One thing to note here is that notice that for the most part at the beginning of this process, I'm not using S sharp or C sharp. Personally, in my own work, I've been kind of going off the reservation of experimenting with coming up with a freer way to work. Not to say that S sharp and C sharp was a bad idea, but I think that we can create something that can actually be free for all, and then even come back around to organics. So for now, just notice that my icon is light gray. So continuing on here, I keep telling myself not to use box cutter. Box cutter is just too easy, you guys. I could pull this leg out of a cube. Check my Twitter if you don't believe me. But we'll just use cubes here. So we'll just rotate this, scale it on the X. And I'm going to select this and press Alt X. And notice that with two objects, we have a different mirror. So I'm going to mirror this using mirror cross active, which is basically mirror mirror. And we want to mirror this across this. And because of the way our mirror is, well, it's supposed to have put on a bisect there, but that's not as important. What's important is to select this, select the main shape, press Q, difference. And now we're cutting in here and we have our little area here. And we can still go in edit mode and do things. In fact, I'm gonna press my luck right here. And that is the result we get. So let's go back into object mode and let's just boost this particular mod up the stack, because we can make this work. That's our final bevel. This one's the one we're looking for. So I shift scrolled and let go in order to jump to this one real quick. So what I want to do is extend it about that much. Press Alt H to bring back all the cutters. And we'll just SX, scale this in and give it what it wants. Press 1 to hide everything again. 1 at the top of the keyboard, not numpad 1. And let's adjust our bevel. So this is our final bevel at this moment. So continuing on, I'm going to Shift A, add a cylinder. You know, you would think it'd be kind of strange inserting all these shapes, but sometimes I just find peace in bad habits, you know, because I'm telling you, box cutter and especially the edge alignment stuff be short work. So at this point, old habits, Control, numpad minus, cut that in. However, we lost our cutter. You know, I'm going to need that back. So let's bring back that cutter. So I pressed Shift and the layer that it was on. So in your file, it might be 2, but I have an extra collection of junk. So it was like Shift 3. I'm just going to add a loop cut here. Control B, bevel it. You know, sorry, sometimes I get ahead of these explanations. We'll just put a loop cut here. Control B, E, Alt S, and we have our piece here. You know, just a little cutter magic just to make this cut more interesting. And we look on this side and we see that we probably need to bring that back and talk to it. Maybe want to raise it up a little bit if we really want that size, but no need to cause ourselves undue friction. However, we can make that work, you guys. So, you know, it's pushing the limits and testing the waters constantly that, you know, the fun part of Blender. So that's going to work for us. So let's just stick in there. So because I'm using default controls, I could shift left click and drop my cursor here where I'll place a cube, and we'll select these two. Difference. We'll go back to this now because this was a boolean setup with hard ops, because we have our own control numpad minus boolean system of setting things up. There's no need to use bool tool if you're using hard ops. In fact, if anything, if your icon isn't changing on bool shapes, you probably want to probably get with us about that, or at least make sure that, you know, you're aware of that, because it does take away some of the experience if you're not using it. So with this shape, I'm just going to press Q and use Q array, except I want to go on the Z. And I love Q array because it has mouse wrap. It's just a classic. We have a gizmo based array as well, but I'm just such a fan of that one. And you know, as I start adding in these sort of details, I like to start playing with my width. However, we can take this up another level. So I'm going to Control Shift click this to add another bevel, and you see it's affecting nothing. But if we add a cube, in fact, let's not even add a cube, let's add a plane. Let's talk about planes. So with this plane, I can press Q, and notice that HardOps has a special menu just for planes, starting off with 2D bevel. Still a classic, I love this thing. And then we can use T-Thick, where I press 2 in order to push it with an offset on both sides. I like to see how much it's going in by seeing how much of it comes out. Kind of weird to say out loud. So we'll move this up here. We'll select both of these, press Q, difference, and we see that this bevel is a little hot. So let's cool it down. And we start dialing back this particular bevel, and we see that the surface is looking good. The goal with using multiple bevels is to have each bevel get smaller as it goes. In my personal experience, I found that that makes for a more stable workflow experience. However, I'm constantly experimenting with this. So, you know, if you're wondering about the lack of, tutorial content kind of covering the same fundamentals as 2.79 is because, really the game has changed in 2.8, and because of that, I feel that a lot of changes are needing to be done under the hood, just to do things that I've always wanted to do. Finally, take care of workflow inefficiencies that we've had in the past. The goal is always to make the product easier. The first release that we did in 2.8 was intended to be a classic release, and then after that we would begin changing some things with the formula in order to push hard ops forward again. Not too much, S sharp, C sharp, still classics, still work the way that I asked that they did long ago, and you see here as we're detailing this shape with just random cubes. Cubes, I just love cubes, you guys. I'm sorry. You look at my oldest videos, I kind of had an infatuation with the box. I did a music video as an ode to the box, so I'm just coming out and saying it. A lot of people love Suzanne, but I love the box. So you do you guys, but me, Box City, baby. So we got this piece cut in, and this piece looks kind of good. So I'm gonna shift 3, bring that back, and we'll duplicate it, put it over here, because one good cut deserves another shot. So we'll just cut that in there. When it comes to hard ops, really, the videos are intended to just get you guys started on the mindset of using the tool, because there's so many different directions you can go in. And especially now, notice that I'm not dealing with C sharp and S sharp. I haven't done any sharpening. I'm just letting Blender handle it. It's gotten better automatically. Like, I've been working on this idea where auto smooth is connected to the bevel with the driver, and then it's a different type of guided workflow. But I'm always thinking about how to make this tool easier and easier. So just kind of give you an idea on how release cycles go. It's usually after we put out box cutter, we put on our hard ops hats and we start dealing with hard ops, and vice versa. But also the first 72 hours after a release, we are on the lookout for any complaints or issues that customers are experiencing, and getting those addressed via hot fixes. So the first 72 hours after a release is the most important to us, and I'm grateful for any users that are reporting issues, and I hope that y'all continue to do so. It does show an intense amount of engagement. I think with this latest box cutter release, most people were so taken aback by custom shape that it delayed some of the. Right there, I'm gonna use C S sharpen, back in the game, but it's not C sharpen. Also, I was about to use box cutter right here. Let me get out of box cutter. I don't need box cutter. People always ask, what should I start off with, hard ops or box cutter? I'm like, box cutter is a fun time, but hard ops is the complete toolkit. It's everything you need basically to get started with all this crazy Boolean business and get a taste of it and see what it has to offer you. Right here, I'm going to lower this to 20. Also, it looks terrible, so we'll put a weighted normal on it and move on with our lives. So continuing on, let's talk about this shape. I'm going to put a subdivision on it, so I'm going to press Control 3. Now it's an egg. That's not going to work. So let's talk about sharpening. We'll use S sharpen, and notice that it creases everything. And this is because if we look under my settings here for sharp options in the Control tilde helper, I realize as I say that sounds like a lot, like I'm dropping a lot on you. But, I'm trying to make this interesting for people who are already familiar with all this stuff, while also trying to tell new people. In fact, as I explained, I'm over explaining. I should get back to work. So inside the sharp options, you can choose whether you apply a crease or a seam, which can come in handy for seam. I use a lot for selecting things in face select with L. Crease will make your sharpness resistant to subdivision, which can come in handy for using subdivision conversion, which is something I do a lot for pieces that need to be subdivision, or I'm trying to jump back and forth between smoothing it and then going back and beveling it. B-weight and sharp are just the obvious. Sharp is affecting the sharpening. B-weight is affecting the amount of beveling that's happening. However, at this moment, bevel weight just isn't what it used to be, so I'm not using it as much as I was, and I'm currently brainstorming ways to get back to it, but Blender is working against us on that. But continuing on, So right now I'm using crease, and because of crease, this is the result that we're getting. However, if I select this face up top and I use Q in edit mode and I just turn that off, this is what we get. However, you know, wrong selection. Let's select these edges and let's just take the sharpness off, and this is what we have. And if we go in and turn on wireframe using Q, going under settings and wireframe, this is what we have so far. As far as geometry, you know, it's just a cube. So the next thing is I want to, well, let's Alt S. This is what our scale is. So if we would have put a lattice, it would have been the wrong scale. So let's Control A, apply scale. Let's go under modifier and let's use lattice. And thanks to AR, lattice is lattice. It's great. It just puts it where I need it. You know, I haven't yet gotten around to giving them my congrats on making it so great, but now that we have it, notice that lattice has a special Q menu where you can add spans. I'm going to add 4 spans on the Z, and this will let me kind of use this as a edit mode cage, which can come in handy for control situations. Let's just grab this, GY. I'm hoping select through is working because it's so terrible when I drag a box and it doesn't select through it, but with lattices, you know, Jesus take the will. So we're just gonna grab these, GY. Maybe grab this one, GY. And this is what we have so far. And we look at it from the front, and maybe we'll wanna flare this and want to flare this out, you know, a little Mega Man kind of proportions going on here. Totally not making Mega Man, by the way. I never mess with commercial properties. So with this setup, so far we have 2 modifiers, subdivision and lattice. So if we press Control 1, this is what we have. We press Control 2, Control 3. And, you know, interestingly, when it came to experimenting with this personally, I was telling myself, you know, I should do a video, using decal machine before time. I should do a video that shows that, you know, I'm not completely against subdivision. Subdivision has a place and time. Also at this point, I'm no longer going to explain that I'm pressing Shift A and adding cubes and scaling them. Okay, you guys, I assume you get it by now. So continuing on. So anyways, so I gotta tell you guys about me pressing Shift A and inserting some cubes. Right here I'm using Q difference. I always experiment between using the hotkey, which takes my hand off the mouse, and just using the Q menu, which doesn't take my hand off the mouse. However, I do have hotkeys on my mouse for aligning the view, and I always take my hands off the mouse to align my view, which just, I'm telling you, old habits die hard. Like I talk about how I would offer nunchuck therapy to students, but I also need it personally, where someone would just come by and hit me with a stapler for just having bad habits, for slouching in a chair, for craning forward, having bad posture, not facing a microphone, you know, those sort of things. But let's not go into that. So the interesting thing here is I can press Control 1 and take it to its simplest form. Blends are still there. Control 2, Control 3. And this is all set up for us. I actually mailed a friend of mine a brick. He's writing me about it now. I should respond to him. There's Control 4, which is you know, looking a little bit better. You know, what we'll do is actually apply it here. And then we'll apply the lattice. And then we'll press Control 2 and put a subdivision on it again. And notice that at the bottom of the stack, it's just terrible. Just gonna be terrible, you guys, but we put it at the top of the stack. This is gonna help us out. Maybe not right now, but we'll come back to that. And, you know, there's a reason I did that. I just don't remember. So I'll press Alt-G, we'll place this cube back in the center, and we forgot to put a kneecap on this thing, but we'll come back to that. In fact, looking at this piece, I'm like, I wonder how we can just borrow that. In fact, let's give it a try. You know, sometimes you gotta follow the curve. All right, and I will press Shift S to snap my cursor here. and use box select. And this is like basic Blender modeling stuff here, where I'll just press S and Z to control that curvature to just match that area. And you see with subdivision, it just collapses like the black hole. So I'll press S, I'll put S sharpen and just use the power of the sharpening to just hold that form steady for me. And I can press Control 2, Control 1, Control 2 at the top of the keyboard, of course, to add additional levels of subdivision and get this exactly where I want. In fact, I'll move this up. Let's change this back to medium point, and let's select these two edges and just press Shift S, and I'll use origin to selection. That way I don't have to deal with all this other business of using a 3D cursor, especially when I'm going to move it and insert a cube moments from now. So we'll use difference, and this is what we have so far. So we'll press Q with something selected, and under settings turn off wireframe, and we can see that it's not holding together. However, we lower our sharpness to 20, work perfect, and we see that there's a little bit of fastening. So right now we still have the variability of being able to get rid of the fastening, and we could also do the same thing for the cutter here. In fact, I'll up it up one more, up it up. Wow, it's just not all there. So Shift A, add a cube, and we'll put in the kneecap. No need to deviate from the grand plan. And we'll select these two parts and just press Control B, and then press Alt X to mirror this beneath. Let's move this over, and let's Alt X mirror it here. And because of that, now we have the full versatility of just moving it around, and the origin remains the same. You know, just a little mirror 101 for you. So I want to pull this out, but also at this point we'll go ahead and insert one more cube, connect it here, cube difference. Alright, so continuing on, we'll take this piece right here, wrong piece. We're trying to get this middle one. You know, I always said wire selections are treated like second class citizens. Some things never change. However, we'll bring this down, bring this up in order to make it smaller. And then we want to go in here and either lower to auto smooth, or we can actually rotate this and get it just right and actually catch an angle. However, this object doesn't look sharpened. There we go. Sometimes the shading just kind of betrays you. You know, in 2.8, it's a little harder to see if your faces are flipped. So we did add in the Alt V menu an option for face orientation. It's also up here somewhere. Here we go. So we made that a little more accessible. In fact, I'm not even trying to go into camera view yet. We'll just bring that in, scale it down a little bit more. And we can even go in the back here, grab this. And it looks like because we have mirror on, it's not letting us actually select everything. So we turn that off. We can actually see what's going on here. And then if we turn it back on, we should be able to move it. And there we go. However, I just don't like that knee. In fact, we want to make a shape that actually contours in here. You know, unlike the previous test version. So let's use the same trick as before. I mean, we could bring the cutter that's creating it back from the dead, which would be pretty absolute in its recreation. But, you know, I like to mess with a little bit of modeling the manual way, just to, you know, generate ideas and think of other problems that could be getting solved. So something like that. Perfect. And we'll just use my old friend Clean Mesh. However, Clean Mesh, and let's back up here. This is what our wireframe looks like. If we use Clean Mesh, we will get something like this. So let's select these two, mark them as sharp, and try putting a level of subdivision. You can see what the geometry solves like. So that'll actually work for what we want here. And we'll just bring that down. SY, GY, bring it back. Kind of got a little lost there for a moment. We'll apply modifiers, making this real. And then we'll clean the mesh again in order to just get back where we started. And we'll just select this edge and then control click all the way to here, to here, to here. Q, bevel, just to bevel that. But we see that it's giving us a little bit of work here. So let's symmetrize it. Instead of using mirror, we're going to symmetrize it, which should just give us an edge down the middle. And then we'll try that again. And the reason it was beveling this is because, you know, there wasn't a spacer edge in between. Now we see that we're getting the result that we were wanting. We apply the scale. It's looking a little bit better. So let's dial it back and let's see if we could troubleshoot this area here. Mesh machine coming soon. Let's just remove the sharpening there and maybe see if this area can be smoothed out just a little bit. Just add a couple of loops and GG slide. And of course for the other side, we're going to use just modifier, mirror. And that's done. We don't have to worry about that anymore. And the knee looks better than what was planned. So the next thing is shift right click, put my cursor there, put a plane here. You know, and gone. Such short work of this. And I plan to come back and do some box cutter content. But hard ops, you know, I get a lot of comments of people saying, you know, hard ops being forgotten, it's becoming irrelevant, not utilizing it anymore. So right here, I use control click to add a new bevel modifier. But yeah, you know, I see those comments and definitely pay attention to them. And, you know, I also get a bit of a chuckle out of them. I'm like, you know, these guys have no idea. You know, each tool is kind of broken down into a set of limitations that we follow, which may sound kind of weird, but it's worked pretty good for us. Like, for example, hard ops is a tool of systems. So the tool is built up of many different types of systems built for assisting you at various areas. Box cutter is simply cutting. You know, that's the constraint of that tool. You know, we won't do anything that doesn't help it cut. Or we try not to, you know, there's a scope on it. And then with kit ops, its purpose is just to insert things very quickly and very usefully. And that definition is intentionally vague because it can expand to a variety of things. So right here, we're going to press SX and I'm going to select this shape, press Q, difference. We'll just cut that right in there. And that did not come out well. Let's press Shift 3, bring this back. You can see that as you move along, this becomes easier. By easier, I mean harder. But in some countries, that also means easier. So let's look at why it is looking like this, because it's probably modifier related. Which boolean is it? Why did you do this? Alright, something happened here. Not sure what. Let's move this back up. And now it's looking fine. So we'll just keep rolling. And for the most part, we haven't even saved this yet because usually I save a file once I'm sure that the outcome is worth saving. You know, I have so many blend files, it's just, you know, not to brag or anything. I mean, I don't think it's brag worthy to have a bajillion blend files, but geez, you know, I've tried to hire people to go through my blend files and turn them into asset packs, and, you know, nobody wants to do that, you know, but, I'm gonna press period here and change this back to median point, because having any other way of scaling is just weird. And you can see this bevel didn't work out because we didn't apply to scale. So now we apply to scale, control numpad minus, control 3, bring that back, G, Y, press H. Let's look at this thing from the bottom. Shift S, cursor. Let's put a cylinder here. And let's press 1, bring that cylinder down. We'll select this, use difference, and press Alt-Z in order to see through. It's the only way to select these interior faces deep inside sometimes. And then Alt-Z to go back into solid, because I don't want to be a ghost. And just a couple of extrudes, will make for an interesting cut section happening in here. And we could even take that, a step further. Channel our inner Lord Vitali, which he would hit it with some framing, which, not to go too crazy, because no one's going to look up under this foot. In fact, we want to select this, select what we want to cut out, and we'll use control numpad minus. I forgot about that. I'm supposed to fix that. But cutting bowls into bowls is a thing. Let's press shift 3. One, 3, bring that back, and we have a little bit of shading weirdness right here. And usually I remedy that by just putting in some support cuts. And we're back to layer 1. Let's get this layer also on the cutters layer. And this is kind of what our boot is looking like. Well, kind of. This is our boot this moment. So let's play with more subdivision. So control 1. Now it's this. Let's press Q, S sharp. And we'll just bring this down. And I'm just going to put a loop here. Control B to bevel. Put a loop here. We'll press V to bring this up. We'll press F to fill that and fill both these sides. And we're just going for a shape. In fact, we'll mirror it so the work is halved. It's a robot, so we'll keep the foot kind of unisex. Maybe even remove the sharpening on this. And we also want to put a line down the middle. And that'll help us keep our sanity. We'll select these 4 and just mark them as sharp, which we see that, we're kind of pushing our luck here. There we go. Now we're back under control. And so, right here is kind of a perfect example of me utilizing subdivision in order to get something created and to just play with forms that are both round and smooth, while also getting something planar in just the right places. Just the way I like it. Sounded kind of weird. Let's take this, move it up just a smidgen, and look at what we have here. So at this point I'm going to save because I just don't want to lose this file. We'll call this H9 Tut Boot. Coming soon to Patreon, where you'll be able to download this boot afterwards. In fact, all the files I use in tutorials, you can always download at my Patreon afterwards. So right here, I'm going to use T-thick, but I'm going to press 2 because I love pushing it both ways. My girlfriend comes out here again, I'm going to murder her. All right, and we'll just do a C/ here just to make this piece ours. And now that this piece is ours, we have a lot to do with it, but really let's simplify this. So first thing I want to do is just smart apply. That will apply everything. Smart apply is this thing I've been working on. It's an idea, but once it's done, it should actually apply anything specifically the way that you would need if you're following my workflow, another attempt at a guided workflow. And so right here, I'm just going to select this edge, make sure that's only the thing selected, Control X, dissolve that. And we'll select this, Control click here, Control B, and we'll shift click here to put our cursor where we're bringing in our old buddy, the cuber, and we'll cut into that, and Alt X, and we want to actually modify or mirror it over, not symmetrize. That way it shows up. Shift C, cube, we bring this down, G, Y. So you can see that I'm starting to speed up here because, you know, it's kind of hard to work slow. You know, I get a lot of comments in the group that are like, you know, you're working too fast. I'm sorry, you guys. I don't know what to say. I mean, I'm not even wearing my Sonic hat, but I have one. You know, I should just start wearing that in my videos. But, you know, I'm not trying to be that fast. I'm trying to take it slow with you guys because I do want the users to be the ones telling the legend of the tool with awesome work, you know, glorifying Blender itself, you know. So we'll select both of these, difference, and you see it's the same thing over and over. I'm snapping my cursor, inserting a cube, and because there's already a sort going on, every cut I do will just happen on the other side. So if that's too fast for you, you may have to go back to the beginning of this video when I did my very first control numpad minus, because the same thing over and over. So continuing on, while we have our boot here, let's put a plane here, and let's talk about cutting with planes. To all those who have cut with planes similar to that, I apologize. You know, it was a thing for a while and it was great. It was awesome. It was crazy. But now you have to add a little solidification in order to do any sort of cutting with planes. And you have to use a cube if you're trying to get the result I was once getting when I was cutting with planes. So right here, shift click, place a cube. In fact, at this point, I'm going to need some face, rotation, center snapping, so that way I can really get this thing in there where I want, and select it and just cut in there. And there's no mirror. I'm slacking. There we go. And so our boot is definitely coming together here. However, we do want to look at our profile. Profile's terrible. Let's bring that down. Let's bring this down. Let's go in Alt Z, see-through mode, to select this, bring that down. GZ, bring that down. And we'll select this one and just remove the sharpening in order to get something a little more like that. But I want to look at it in local mode, which, you know, local mode's weird now. I have to press / like 5 times to go in local mode. I mean, I'll get there, but it's like, sheesh, what's going on, guys? So we come back out, and, you know, that's all we want. Just a little bit of slope. You know, nothing major. In fact, let's look at the wireframe. We press Control 1, it looks like that. Control 2, Control 3. Let's operate at Control 1. So what I want to do is apply that. Actually, let's apply to mirror, apply to subsurf. Too many clicks there. We have a button that would have reduced all 4 of those, and 2 keystrokes. Old habits die hard. So Control 1, let's put that back. Let's Alt X, put that back. So when I apply subdivision and then put subdivision on again, it's something I call, I guess, rebasing. But, you know, it's not terminology that I use often in videos, but it is something I do quite a bit because having smoothness after the fact is also a thing. And it's something I ponder a lot, is how it can be done easily and digestible to users. So, you know, it's more of something that you can get every time versus like a random result. Because, you know, I have to admit, you know, I must be the Boolean whisperer because, you know, I don't have half the issues that users report. But who knows? So continuing on, shift right click. Let's put our cube here. So because snapping is off, whenever I hold control, it'll just align to the surface. S, Y, Y, select these two, difference. And because we have a subdivision at the very top of the stack, that'll come to our aid later. However, at this time, let's put a bevel on top. And because of that bevel, we're also probably going to need to lower it to maybe 20. And we're also going to need to top that off with a weighted normal. So now if we collapse our stack, we have a pretty crazy stack going on here. And that's the thing, you know, that's the goal of this video, is to show you that, you know, I've just been off the reservation. I mean, I plan on coming back to it, and I've been working my way back to robots, but, you know, there's a level of freedom that's able to be had with working this way. And so I hope that, you know, you give it a try, because it's fun. It's just a fun time for all. So what's aside the leg here, you know, it'd be awesome would be a cylinder. Really set this thing up. Been looking at it so long without it. So we could do something like that. So let's try it. Let's duplicate this, select this, difference. We look at this in local mode. 1, 2, 3. See, 3 forward slashes. It looks fine. We'll scale this down, but we'll press 3 to get back our cylinder that we're using. Go to layer 1, and we will use it as a difference here. And so now we have our cylinder. You know, should have done it sooner. It feels so darn easy. And we'll put a bevel here, 1 segment. You know how I like to do it. You know, I was going to bring the solenoid into this and use the solenoid from the previous video in there and be like, you know, for everybody who made their solenoid, you know, congrats, you made your first robot kit bash part. You're a robot kit basher now. So this is what we have so far. However, you know, a classic trick I like to also use is, you know, erase segments to fill in the cracks. You know me, I love Iron Man. You know, not the character, he's kind of an asshole, but, you know, the Iron Man armor, scientifically perfected, you know, design armor. There's no way to not love it. So we're just selecting things and beveling them. And by beveling those edges and beveling them again, I have this. So in retrospect, I could see how something like this would be hard to grasp. But I mean, this is literally basic modeling. Nothing complex here, guys. You know, it's going to be a meme now. Nothing complex, guys. We'll just be showing, you know, rocket formulas and stuff. But we'll just keep arraying this up. And with this, we want to shape it into place, you know, really make it work out. So let's shift A or a Q, add modifier. Let's use a lattice. And the lattice tried. I just want you guys to know. That's the lattice. It tried. And it got close. So it's getting smarter. I really am proud of AR's work with it, because I just wanted just the ability to connect the lattice. But the best people I work with are the ones who can take an idea and just see, you know, hey, this idea could be this idea. It's like, oh, wow. You know, I love it. I love it. You know, there's no fighting over credits. Just, I have this idea. It's like, well, that idea could be this idea. And then, you know, we're all arguing over the potential of an idea. It's a lot more constructive. So looking at this stack, what I want to do is make sure the lattice is moved, or the lattice is affecting it before the mirror. So we'll just shape this. Sorry, lost train of thought for just a second while talking about this stuff. I do have to be slightly guarded with what I say in videos, because gotta take special care not to offend anyone or encourage aggression. You know, Boolean wars is a serious thing. Very serious. And it's not over. And we're not done yet. So much more in the works. So here we go. We have our bot leg looking good. You know what would look good is if we took a cube, put it here, and I could just hear you in the audience just saying, oh my God, is this guy serious? He seriously insert the 50th cube. You know what? I'm out. No, come on. Look, we'll take this, we'll bevel it, round it, call it a day. I know it's kind of an elongated cube, but you know, you select both of these, control numpad minus, and we get something like that. However, shading just terrible. Also, we did that to get around the bevel limitation. However, we probably want to actually make this bevel a little bit smaller. Not that one, that one. And also, you know, this thing could probably use a weighted normal on top. And we'll press Shift 3, bring that back, and just adjust the scale, because we're not working within our bevels. We're working within our the overall object, you know. So we'll also use array, push this on the Y, on the Z, I guess, push it here. And this is what we have so far. However, I do have my initial boot on the side as reference because I wanted to do something somewhere as successful as that one. You know, people received it very well. So we'll plug this here, use a difference, press Shift 3 because we went too deep. Don't tell anybody. Press Shift 3, bring that back. And we'll send that in. And this thing has a mirror on it. No, it doesn't. Sorry. Sorry about lying to you guys. And we'll control snap it here. We'll move it to 2, which is actually layer 1. Blender's kind of weird right now. We'll select this, difference, press Control 3, and we want to snap it over here. But watch, Blender's gonna put it on these darn bull shapes. You know, they can't select them worth a darn, but they do like to pretend they're people when you're snapping around to them. You know, go figure. So we'll just move that to layer 1 and get something right about here. Difference. And that's going to be a risky proposition. You can see it right there. So let's rethink that. Do we actually want to push our limits in this area? And the answer is definitely. We can find it a home just right. Bam. And so far so good. We got our holes here. So I'll take a moment to use a little bit of KitOps. We'll press Q, bring up the KitOps menu, and there's a free HardOps pack of inserts out there you can get. And inside of the HardOps pack, there's the inserts, and then there's the subsets. So if you're a fan of the classic inserts, that's how you would use them. So right here, I'm just gonna take an insert and put it right here. And we'll just use face snapping, just get it where we want. And we'll use Alt X to mirror it across and get it where we want. As you can see, even though KitOps has a mirroring thing, I still want to you know, move it up here, remove its mirror, put its mirror back. And also put one here. And we want to take that, place it here, but we want to get rid of the mirroring. And actually, let's just move it up on the Z. We'll Shift D, place it here. S, and I'm just holding Control when it needs to be snapped. Alt X to mirror across this. And we are on our way. In fact, we can take this and even apply the first level of bevel. and just move this in. Actually, not so far in. Just make room, because we could come back and still insert our solenoid there and call it a day. However, I do see this video is dragging on, and I've been given the advice to not do long tutorials anymore. So I've been trying to do shorter content. So let's move on to the finale, shall we? We'll select these two edges, Control B bevel, round it out, as sharpen. Select these two, slash, and you know, sometimes the Boolean gods will just line up for us and things will just work out. Right here, I'm just going to place a cube. Alignment's kind of crazy. Doesn't matter. I'm just an eyeballer. So we'll select both of these. Difference. We have our notches in the boots. And our contraption here is looking pretty good. You know, we want to take this, mirror it to the other side. You know, what are we doing here, guys? So the other thing is in this area, you know, we'll add a edge loop, but we'll press P and separate it. And with this loop, you know, first I'm going to snap the origin to geometry. We're going to take this object here, convert to curve, Q, adjust curve. All right, and there we go. So this is our boot as of this video. In fact, we can continue messing with this thing till the end of time. And I mean, most of this is still non-destructive because we only applied just certain levels. And as a result, it kept things kind of simple. So we'll cut here. We'll select both of these and do a C slash. And shift click, add a cube here. You know, I always love doing notches on the sides of things. So we'll select this, difference, and I'm just wanting to show you just you know, when the modifiers are sorting, there's no need for us to go look at the stack unless we're doing technical stuff. But the process of working forward is you know, always our goal. You know, in contrast to other people, we want to keep people operating forward. And not to say that other people's goals are, you know, bad because they're different. It's just that is our primary focus. So whenever it comes to, you know, addressing issues, the most severe things, I think, as far as what gets our time a location is things that stop the workflow. Like this is a time stopper. This is something that will cause the users to waste and lose a lot of time, and instability, of course. You know, not talking trash, just thought I would throw that little tidbit out there. So just inserting cubes, just really giving cubes a day. You know, we'll select all these edges, Control B once, select this and difference, but we'll press Control 3, bring that back, do a little bit of thickness. And that's kind of how my process for detailing goes sometimes. We'll press Control 3, bring this back, and just raise that up just slightly. And if we just lower the bevel amount, we get something sharper and more contrasty in that area. In fact, I'm pretty sure we could also scale it just a tad in order to give ourselves a little bit of room here. But I also see that inserts got lost. So let's look at all these inserts. First, let's enable them. We press B to select all this, and we're just moving this to the collection and deleting the hierarchy of that. So now we have our boot here. And if we start looking at this in rendered mode, you see I've already got some you know, throw around materials for this thing from the R shader that I created. However, this thing is still a work in process. I mean, every time I use the R shader, the first thing I do is remove the roughness. And then I go back and I remove the color, which makes it not such a random shader after all. but I'm like, you know, I think I could fare better with just making this whole boot black and then going from there. I mean, we look at this right now with nothing showing, and my friends, that's a boot. And so I'm just giving it the look around, because got to make sure it's a nice boot. Got to get the respect of, you know, the boot lovers out there. You know who you are. I don't. So jumping back over to solid, I'm gonna press D and go in decal machine. As you guys know, love decal machine. This is the tool of tools. And we're just gonna start slapping this on the surface. Oh yeah, forget about perspective, making these look funny. And we're just gonna move these around, just placing them. And with decal machine, it just serves as a very nice finishing touch on models. You know, a lot of stuff I do is intended just to be shown in cycles. You know, just a little goof off, just me having some fun. You know, not everything's life or death or going into the next AAA game. Sometimes things are just crunches, just experiments to just practice design and mess with shapes, you know. So I get so many messages of people, you know, taking 3D even more seriously than me. I mean, I've always taken 3D quite seriously. You know, most of the arguments I've had are with hobbyists where I'm trying to exclaim to them that, you know, there's much more to CG they could be going for. But now I've learned to not have such arguments with people. So we'll select both of these, Alt X, mirror that across, scale this down, and you can see that, you know, I use decal machine very simply. In fact, one thing that's kind of been driving me crazy about this version is, I guess, auto parenting. You know, auto parenting was a craze that got around, but we personally decided it was a terrible idea. But we also see other tools of the same ilk also utilizing it. Hopefully they have toggles to turn that off, because it can be a disaster for orientation and transform, which is the reason that we went up against it. But you could see that this process of just taking decal machine at the very end, like, you know, I haven't done this a whole lot in 2.8. I told machine, I was like, you know, I want to be surprised like the users when I use the tool. And every time I use this tool, I'm like, holy moly. I mean, you just put it in the right hands. You use it on a hand. Sheesh. Get this guy out of here, you know. So I hope, you know, just demonstrating it in action is kind of made more people curious in Machine's workflow, because, you know, the more he does as far as tools, the more insight it gives us as far as ways that Blender can be used that we've never imagined. You know, a lot of the features that we create, I spend a bit of time pondering, you know, how to reuse those for other things and other ideas. Like, for example, snapping. You know, snapping's great in box cutter, but when it's perfect, you know, I want that thing everywhere. I want it in kit ops, I want it in hard ops, I want it in decal machine. So, you know, an idea should never just end. You know, I'm all for, what the heck? All right, so I'm trying to move this GYY, move it down here, maybe GYY, and we'll select both of these and use D and use project, and that's a done deal. Project, you want to talk about just, wow, that's all I could say. I'm done, you guys. Like, you know, congratulations, this project is over. You can end this video. Go ahead and downvote me. Downvoting only lets me know that my haters have seen this video. Upvotes lets me know that you know, operatives are seeing it. But, you know, personally, I don't downvote people. I feel that YouTube has a secret algorithm for that, so that if Google ever tortures me, they'll only show me stuff I downvoted. So I'll be watching all this Logan Paul and stuff about the president. You know, they'll just really put the pins to me. You know, I'm going to select this, press D, project, done. So I feel like project is way better than it was before. Like something about project, I feel like I only have to use it once and I don't have to ever tweak this stuff. Bada bing, bada boom. So, and we're not done. We're nowhere near done. You know, there's a whole bunch of stuff in this that I never use just because I feel I should watch some tutorials first. You know, people were tuning in to watch a tutorial, and then I go in and use decal machine. Worse, terrible. I mean, I don't even think decal machine's watching. I hope not, because I'm probably disappointing them. All right, I'm back. Distracting my girlfriend never takes a hint. So continuing on, I'm going to select this piece, press Alt X, and mirror this to the other side. Looks a little bad. However, I'm not looking at it that close. I'm sure there's a machine tool I'm supposed to be using for that part of machine tools. But back to this. Just slapping these decals on here like they belong to me. And in fact, if you pick up the tool, they belong to you. This is the first decal I've had to adjust, but shit, even adjusting decals is a joy. So one thing I was thinking as I walked away from the computer was that by adding a bevel on this piece, it'll look better, but I see I was wrong. Maybe it was if I apply a bevel then away to normal, that piece will actually look good. So I'll press Control S and save this. We'll press D. It's kind of nice being able to work in rendered mode. You know, Blender is just nuts. So let's go with my favorite decal of all time. Right here. It's this cube. You know, there's no denying this thing. I love this cube. Made by Paul Lazowski. I mean, the moment I saw this cube, I was like, dude, that's my decal, man. You know, Cube Gang represent. So a couple more. You know, I was using Machine Made, but I felt that maybe that might cause some people to confuse me for Machine. I get a lot of messages now where people are like, hello, Machine. I'm like, well, I'm not him. I'm this other guy. However, you know, thank you, but he is a different guy. We'll just put a little label here. You know, nothing serious. And maybe go with something of color, like this safety stripe. And we will select this one. We'll select this decal, select the surface, press D, project, nope. Let's try it again. We'll select this, select the surface, D, project. And now we have our safety stripe in front. So continuing on, we've kind of just ignored this side. You know, don't tell anybody. So we'll just slap a decal here. Let's be more creative. Let's slap that decal here. Let's select this, project. Let's grab another one of these decals. And this part of the pipeline, I mean, I aspire to make hops this easy with geometry through Box Cutter, where you can just slap ideas down with no regard, like Machine here. I still think decal Machine is it's one of those ideas I never would have thought of. Was you know, faking the whole game. You know, what has to be real? You know, the answer is nothing. Nothing has to be real. And for that, I have to say this is an indispensable product. Let's go ahead and just get our big label here. And let's project it. And then take some screws. And I'm not even having to use project. You know, these are so small that, you know, they're just like floaters. In my head, that's what I tell myself to sleep at night. So right here, we will go with one of the more complex ones in order to just insert here. And we'll even mirror that to the other side just to make our lives easier. Otherwise, we have to continue detailing. You know, another thing that this tool does that I haven't tried yet in this version is decal slice. So I think I did in my last video too. I just forget sometimes. So we'll do a slice. For a minute, I thought Blender was about to end me. It was almost over, you guys. D. We will adjust. And we have something like that going on. So, as you can see, decal machine, no joke. But also, you know, I hope that this was able to serve as a nice introduction to hard ops as well, just showing how to use some of these tools. You know, I'm just using slice. Let's try giving it some thickness. And slice. And we got double slice. Interesting. Not even against that. And we want to take this decal because this is that's $1 million decal right there. We take that, well, before that we take it and project it, and then we mirror it, and it's like, what happened here? How did this happen to this model? Okay, I was like, did that change a decal? No, that's the decal I actually brought in. You know, every time I'm in, and also, you know, I always tell people decals are, you know, meant to be small. You know, anytime I scale them big, an alarm starts going off in my head, like, I'm gonna make it get a little weird on the close-ups, but, you know, it's nothing against machine itself. It's just, you know, same thing with kit ops. You shouldn't make your object 90% kit ops. You know, you should block it in and make a nice base and then add on to it with stuff. You know, if I was making a robot, I wouldn't start from a cube and then cut it into a robot. I would probably sculpt it up a little bit. Right here, I'm going to use V match. What do I do to this decal? You know, we're just going to get rid of that and press D, bring in a different one. This one's a winner. It won't let me down like that other decal, believe me. So we take a look at our boot, and it's kind of a, you know, T8000 style, you know, as far as its shading scheme. You know, this boot is a little more destroyer friendly. But let's turn back on overlays, and on layer 2 I actually have a scene here. If anything is parented where it's supposed to, then I should be able to just move this down. Ta-da! And we look through the camera and the view is just not right. And this thing's tracked to something too. Clear track. And we'll just move that up. And if we let it play, it should just be a rotating boot. And Alt V, EVHQ. And let's definitely save this. We're pressing our luck. Stop. This decal is huge. Who let me do that? also Alt V, EVLQ, because it's getting slow on this nut. D. Let's get back up. You know, just that machine is not goofing off, man. And we'll project that again. And let's look at this again. Alt V, EVHQ. In the future, we should have EVHQ able to be set up by the user to be more custom and specific. And we're just zooming around, looking at our boot that I spent over an hour messing with here. We'll catch on a nice vantage angle and take a look at it in our 3D view. And our decals aren't enabled. And neither are simple, and none of these, so we want to turn all those on. And let's look at this from the back, because there are some things we can do before closing out, you know, trying to not let myself have weak spots in the back areas of a model. For a while it was acting like it was shrink wrap. It's like, whoa, that would be crazy. And let's turn back on overlays so that way we can see ourselves mirror this to the other side. Let's bring up the tool again. And looking at this, I see that there's a slew of things we could have done with box cutter. Well, not box cutter, hard ops to just set this area up. Project. In fact, decal too big. Project. And then Alt X to mirror it. And so continuing on, we'll scale this, put it here, project, mirror it to the other side. I should have also created some custom decals in this. I was meaning to brush up on that prior to this video, so that way I could just start showing how to create custom decals, because I used to have a lot of custom decals in Decal Machine before the great decal loss of last year. And we'll place that one here. And we are just moving along. However, this one just isn't working for me. And also, we want to make a variant of this shader that's possibly darker and also shinier. And we'll call this R2. We'll call this one R1. And we could just go through and just select pieces and just be like R2. Just a little bit of color variation in there. I mean, not even a color accent this time. And so with R2, maybe we could even lower the roughness to get something a little more matte in certain areas, making for a much cooler result. And so if we look at this in camera view, and we just have our camera rotate with overlays off, we can see what we have so far for our boot. And since this video is dragging on a little bit, getting into the hour range, I will wrap up for now, and I'll see you guys next time.